In Middle Tennessee, the Cumberland Plateau forms a high wall of sandstone gorges, tumbling waterfalls, and hardwood forests that drop suddenly into deep, rugged valleys. For the first century of its history, this geography served as a natural barricade. It kept the county physically cut off from the economic networks and development expanding across the rest of the American South. This isolation created a vacuum. Settlers who arrived on the plateau were forced into an extreme form of self-reliance, practicing subsistence farming and raising livestock just to survive, in a place where no roads reached. But a geographical fortress can only hold out for so long. Eventually, major historical and corporate forces of the outside world would attempt to breach these cliffs. The result was a culture that wasn't shaped by what the outside world brought to it. Instead, the identity of Fentress County was built on the resilience the people here had defined by standing alone. In 1861, as the state of Tennessee voted to secede from the United States, the people of the plateau stubbornly defied the State House. By a margin of 651 to 128, Fentress County voted to remain in the Union. They backed that vote with their geography. The local limestone caves contained high concentrations of calcium nitrate, which could be extracted through a grueling process to create saltpeter, the primary ingredient in gunpowder. Deep inside York Cave and Buffalo Cave, residents operated massive wooden vats in near-total darkness. They undertook the back-breaking labor of leaching the earth to supply the Union war effort with critical munitions. On the surface, a local named Tinker Dave Beatty organized a company of independent scouts. They used their intimate knowledge of the rugged terrain to physically block Confederate raiding parties from entering the county. By utilizing the subterranean bones of the plateau and the high ground above it, the locals turned their isolation into a tactical advantage, defending their independence against overwhelming external pressure. By the early 20th century, outside corporations finally developed the technology to penetrate the plateau and extract its vast reserves of coal and barite. Mining camps like Wilder and Davidson grew into the second and third largest communities in the county. These were company towns where outside corporations held total control over the housing, the stores, and the miners' livelihoods. In 1932, that control reached a breaking point. The same independence that defined the county's early history flared up again, sparking bitter and often violent labor strikes against the mining companies. Despite being cut off from their wages, the striking workers stood their ground. They organized against well-funded corporate forces, refusing to be broken even as the conflict dragged on for months. The strikes highlighted two opposing views of the plateau. Outsiders saw it as a resource to be stripped for profit, while the locals saw it as their home. Outside companies successfully extracted the region's mineral wealth, but they were never able to extract the autonomy of the people who lived there. The county's most famous son, Alvin C. York, followed a similar path. After capturing 132 soldiers during World War I and becoming America's most decorated hero, he returned to the small valley of Pall Mall. York was met with unprecedented global fame and financial offers that would have allowed him to live anywhere in the world. Instead, he turned down the money and the media attention. He returned to his isolated valley and used his public influence for a single purpose: building an agricultural institute to provide schooling for mountain children. York remained in Pall Mall until his death in 1964. By choosing his home over global celebrity, he ensured his legacy wouldn't be a distant memory in a city, but a schoolhouse that still stands in Jamestown today. Today, the era of deep earth extraction has been replaced by a completely different philosophy of land management. Despite a century of mining, massive areas like the Big South Fork are now deliberately kept wild and free of roads by design. The county thrives on its own terms, drawing visitors to the clear waters of Dale Hollow Lake, home to the world record smallmouth bass, without sacrificing its quiet character to commercial sprawl. Even the tourism is grassroots. Every August, Jamestown becomes the hub for the world's longest yard sale, a community-driven event that stretches 690 miles across 6 states. Because of how the plateau was surveyed, Fentress County remains tucked away. It isn't a place you pass through on the way to somewhere else. You have to come here on purpose. The peace and natural beauty found here today isn't accidental. It is a quiet, preserved power, earned by generations of people who stubbornly held their ground.